Hey, Sean Mathis here. I am the founder of Miles of Time Automotive Museum and creator of Automotive Museum Guide. I am here at the Shelby American Collection in Boulder, Colorado. I'm about to go in there and see what it's all about. So let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Steve Volk. I'm the Executive Director of the Shelby American Collection here in Boulder, Colorado. And this is our 28th year. We actually started in 1996. We have what is considered to be the finest collection of Shelby race cars in the world. Behind me, you can see one of the Cobra Daytona coupes. And this is the Le Mans Daytona and Sebring winner. And then next to it is an FIA Cobra that ran in Europe in 64 and 65, driven by Phil Hill and Bob Bondurant, Roy Salvadori and Sir John Whitmore. Between these two cars, they won 60% of the points for the 1965 World Manufacturers Championship. And then next to these guys are the two oldest surviving GT40s. This is GT 103 and GT 104, and these were the first GT40s to actually win a race. They won Daytona in 1965, February 1965, with Ken Miles driving this one and Bob Bondurant driving the other one. Over here we've got a few more GT40s. We have the two of the 366 Le Mans winners. This is the Ken Miles car that officially came in second place, but as everyone knows, it's actually first place. And then next to it is the third place car, the Ronnie Bucknam car. And then behind those guys, we've got a couple Mark IVs. The bronze number 3 was driven by Mario Andretti at Le Mans 67, where he set a track record. He was actually clocked at 232 miles an hour in this car. So as you may know, the Mark IV was a complete Ford effort. These were built by Carcraft in Detroit. It was the first use of aluminum honeycomb. You can see we have a piece of aluminum honeycomb laying down here. This yellow car, this was the Sebring Cobra, where Mario Andretti and Bruce McLaren won Sebring in this in 1967. So this was the first outing for the Mark IV at Sebring. Over here on my right is the very first Cobra. This is CSX 2000, Carroll's first creation. And next to it is an AC Ace and then an AC Bristol. Of course, Carroll started with the AC Bristol in order to wind up with the first Cobra CSX 2000. And this guy, the story goes that he would paint this different colors. It would go out to the dealers, they review it, or the magazines, they would review it. He'd bring it back, strip it, paint it a different color. So the public thought he had a whole fleet of these. The fact is he just had the one. Next to it is a really nice example of a 289 street car. You know, it's hard to imagine, but in the mid-60s, you could buy this at your Ford dealer. And then, of course, the potent 427 Cobra. Also, this is a street car, and you could pick up one of these at your local Ford dealer in 1965, 66, and so on. Behind me is one of the Gulf team cars. This is P1074. This car actually started life as a Mirage, then became a GT40. It ran at Spa and Reims, and it was also used by Steve McQueen as a camera car in the movie Le Mans. So very significant car, very important. We have one of the Roadsters here. This is P/108, or I'm sorry, GT108. And this was a development car. It was actually driven by Ken Miles, Carroll Shelby, and it's the only known GT40 that Jimmy Clark drove. And he drove this at Watkins Glen before a Formula One race. This is a Mark I. It was known as the Brian Redmond car and raced mostly in Europe. We have one of the streetcar examples, the Mark III. So we have basically examples of all the GT40s in our museum. Now, if you'll follow me over here, I'll show you the very first Cobra race car. This is known as the Riverside car, and it's one of one. They only made one Riverside car. You know, they Shelby American built these in series. So on the Riverside car, they made one. Billy Krause raced this, Dave McDonald, Ken Miles, and it wasn't super successful, you know, because they were teething. You know, it was pretty clear that it was going to blow the Corvettes away, and it did just that at its first race in 1962 at Riverside, but it didn't last. You know, they had problems with half shafts and cooling problems and so on. The next series were the Sebring Cobras, and the factory Sebring Cobras, they built 3 of these. This is probably the most famous of the 3, driven by Dan Gurney, and it won at Sebring. It's also the Cobra that's on the cover of the album, the Hey Little Cobra album, so it's very recognizable. It is rumored that these yellow stripes were requested by Gurney at the track so that the guys could easily recognize his car. He sent one of the mechanics to the local hardware store, got some paint, spray paint, and that's how the stripes wound up on here. Next were the Cobra Le Mans Roadsters, and there were 3 factory team cars. This particular one is very significant because it's the first Cobra to win an FIA race. In fact, it's the first American car with an American driver, Dan Gurney, to win an FIA race in 1963. And as a result of this success, Carroll decided he was going to go to Europe and take on the European best, the best of the Europeans, you know, Ferrari and so on. So this is known as the Cobra that struck first blood in the Cobra Ferrari wars. We actually have 2 of the 3 factory team cars. Next to it, this white Cobra with the hardtop is the Tommy Hitchcock car. It was a privateer car, but was very successful in racing in Europe. On my right here is a full comp 427 Cobra, and Carroll made about 29 of these or so, and this is a nicely restored example that raced in South America. And then behind this, I should point out to you that we have the USRRC Cobra Roadster that Ken Miles won the USRRC championship in 1964. Also a very significant car. And then we've got other examples here of USRRC Roadsters. You'll notice that on the USRRC Roadsters, you could run a short windshield, and you know, the rules were a little different than FIA. FIA, you of course had to have a full windshield, had the nubs on the trunk because the FIA suitcase had to fit in the trunk. There are just other minor changes. A few other examples. We've got the Wilmot Coupe. You know, Carroll built 6 Cobra Daytona Coupes, and John Wilmot Racing requested one of the coupes, or a coupe, and Carroll was unable to accommodate him. So, but he did send over a couple guys that helped fabricate this coupe. So it was built off of a real Cobra that John Wilmot Racing got from the AC factory, but it was modified, and this is the European interpretation of a Daytona coupe. Very successful. Had a long racing history, driven by primarily Jack Sears, but it's a very important piece. Now up here we have some more Ford GTs. We've got a nice 0 mileage example of a 2006, and then next to that is a Camilo Pardo interpretation of the Ken Miles car. This is a 2020 Ford GT. And then behind me here, we have one of the Ford GT LMs. We just got this, and they built 20 of these. There's 8 of them in the US. It's a very interesting car. It's got blue carbon fiber trim on it, and the insignia on the back, on the dash, and on the front was actually fabricated from the crankshaft of the 2016 winning Ford GT at Le Mans. So you'll notice that 2002, CSX 2002, the very first race car, is sitting on its original trailer. In 1962, 63, and 64, Carroll was operating on a very tight budget. This was his tow vehicle, which is a Falcon sedan delivery, and that's the trailer that these guys would run back and forth to Riverside and Willow Springs. And this guy actually has a full Cobra race engine, 289 in it, and this was their tow vehicle. And then next to that is one of the R models, one of the 36 R models, where Shelby was very successful in SCCA, having won the championship in 65, 66, and 67 with the R models. Here's a nice street example of a GT350. Now it was a Ford show car, and that's why its engine bay is so glossy. And then a subsequent owner added the Webers because they were normally had a Holly on them. And then next to this GT350 is a 1966 GT350S. It is one of one. It is a Paxton supercharged car, factory prototype. Carroll had plans to have a whole line of S's for supercharged, but at that point in time, Ford was involved and felt that it was just too ambitious of a project for a company his size, especially with the involvement in racing. This is also the first Shelby Mustang that was not white, and it's the beautiful ivy green. Next to this guy is the very first GT500, 1967. So this is where the GT500 started. We've also got a Tiger, a Works Tiger. This raced at the Targa for Rio. And then, of course, it wouldn't be complete without a Thunderbolt. We've got a 427 Thunderbolt in the back here. And then in front here is one of the Dragon Snakes, purpose-built drag racer, and these were very successful in their class.